Let's talk about the stop codons from the gene keys system. So this is also known as the ring of trials. So this is 3 gene keys that are archetypal tests that show up in our lives that we have to meet and match and surpass in order to manifest our dharma, in order to have a prosperous life. And prosperity means, yes, lots of money, but also great relationships and a strong spiritual connection. It's full life abundance, and prosperity is a flow. Before I get into the stop codons, I just quickly want to speak to an update to the channel. So you'll see I changed the name to Gene Keys with Jay Cohen. So I've been experimenting with trying some other things outside of the Gene Keys realm, and it's been going really well, so well that I started another channel for it. So if you are interested in spirituality and business and how those are 2 sides of the same coin, and that our spiritual journey actually culminates in service, and service culminates in a return or exchange of value, aka business. So if you can get behind that and you can see how these things play off of one another, hop on over to that channel. I'll link it. I'd love to have you there. But getting back to the gene keys, which moving forward, all the videos on this channel are going to be about the gene keys, which I know is going to make some of you very happy. So the ring of trials. This is what's called a codon ring. And the codon rings are just now, after years and years of being listed in the book. So if you look in the book, that looks kind of washed out. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to see it. But when you go to a gene key, like the very first page of a gene key, you'll see at the top, it says codon ring. And it'll tell you what ring that gene key is a part of. And this overlays with the human genetic code. It's the reason that the gene keys are the gene keys, is Richard figured out that the I Ching lays over the human genome because we have 64 different codons perfectly. And those 64 different codons, each represented by an archetype, a gene key, can be combined in 21 or 22, I'll save that for another time, different ways. And what those different ways are different codon rings. And a codon ring is simply what codes for an amino acid inside of our body. So we have what are called essential amino acids, and they are the base for proteins. And so when you take your genetic code and the archetypes that are inside and you combine them, so we take many different archetypes, that gives us a certain way in which nature is programmed, and therefore you are programmed. So this has a lot to do with the law of correspondence from Hermetic philosophy. Has a lot to do with as above, so below, as without, so within. That's what the law of correspondence means or represents. And so this different grouping, for example, there's one called the ring of life and death. And it has to do with birth and death and rebirth and all the things that happen in that cycle. And all these different gene keys and archetypes combine together to tell that story. And all of the different codon rings tell different stories. So they're a way that gene keys connect together. Another example of this, or way to think about it, is the programming partners, right? The programming partners, which you will have programming partners for your life's work and your evolution. You'll always have. If you look at the gene key in the book, and you go to that same section where the codon ring is, you'll see another one that says programming partner. And so the programming partner is a link of 2 different gene keys. So codon rings can be 1 gene key, can be 2 gene keys. Some of the bigger ones are 6 or 7 gene keys. At programming partners, there's always 2, and they are basically exact opposites of one another. Like if you think about like a 360-degree wheel, they're going to be on complete opposites of one another on that wheel. And they are energies that although they're opposites, they work off of one another to either spiral you upward into a gift or acidic frequency, or they spiral you downward to deal in the shadow frequencies. But there are other relationships between gene keys, and this is where the gene keys profile system starts to break down a little bit. So the profile is our way in the door, and it is absolutely valuable, and you should look at it, and it will be helpful for your mental understanding. However, at a certain point, that profile, we begin to let go of it. It begins to self-destruct because we start to see how all of these different gene keys, all of these different archetypal energies interlace. And when you see that they all interlace, we carry them all. And even ones that aren't super prominent in us, our partner carries them, or our kid carries them, or whatever relationship around us has it. And so we're always dealing in all of these different archetypes. So the codon rings is just another way to look at connections. And it's really cool. Right now, Richard Rudd, the founder of the Gene Keys, is going through the codon rings and giving teachings. I haven't done any of them yet. I'm very excited to do the Ring of Origin, but I've been in the Star Pearl, and I had my own course that I was running called the Bolt around the Gene Keys and a few other pieces of the puzzle. And so I just haven't had the time or space that I've wanted to dedicate to it. Honestly, I still don't feel like it's time. So I can't tell you what Richard is going to say about this, but I'm going to do my best to talk into this ring of trials today. Because again, moving through these trials are how we manifest our new life. It's how we create the business that we want. It's how our character shifts and changes in the way that brings us closer to divine union, closer to God. These are things that we all pass through at various points in various incarnations in our lives. So the first of the 3 gene keys that are a part of this ring is the 33rd gene key. And it is the shadow of forgetting, the gift of mindfulness, and the city of revelation. I'm looking down here because I have my book down at the bottom. So this gene key, forgetting, is the shadow. What do you assume, or what do you think that you're forgetting? Well, you're forgetting the illusion. You're forgetting the Maya. You're forgetting what's real. You're forgetting your higher self. You're forgetting God. And because we forget God, we have this tendency to scramble to try and fill our lives to the best of our ability with things of the world, be that money or the perfect partner or the perfect vacation or whatever it may be. All of that stems from our forgetting because we do not remember what life was like behind the veil. And when I say behind the veil, what I mean is before we were born, when our soul was in this collective place of unity. That's behind the veil. And then we're born into this separateness. We're born into this duality, and we think that the illusion is real. We think that we need to protect ourselves. We think that I need to do something to find my purpose in the world. But in reality, you are a part of this. You can't not live your purpose in this world. And that's what you forget. You, instead of moving towards divinity, you are run by what are called sanskaras, these memory templates, these wounding patterns that we bring into this world. And those are the things that we live through and that we see instead of true reality. We're living through patterned eyes. We're living through glasses that are tinting things. And most of the time they are not rose-colored glasses. All desires that you have in the world are a desire to remember your true nature, to remember what it's like to have peace and joy and love. And that's what you have forgotten. And this 33rd trial helps us to remember, and the way that we remember is with mindfulness. Different from meditation. And in this case, Richard doesn't mean mindfulness like the mindfulness practice. So that's important to understand, although that is a way to develop mindfulness, right? Mindfulness practice is choosing something that you are going to focus on. So I'm choosing to focus on my breath. And as my mind wanders, I'm going to bring my awareness, my attention back to my breath. And I am going to wander again because my mind is unruly. And then I'm going to come back to my breath. And that's mindfulness meditation. Or another example is you light a candle. And each time your mind wanders, you go into your thinking, you just bring your attention back to that candle. And the point of a mindfulness technique is to become aware of the thoughts that are passing through your mind. And when you become aware of the thoughts passing through your mind, they begin to break down. You begin to see the illusion that is happening here. Illusion, it's a fun word. So what I mean by this is if you are in a crap mood and something happens, like your kid does something, you might yell at them or fuss at them or, whatever, punish them, whatever it is that you do. Whereas if you're in a good mood, they do the exact same thing and your response is completely different. So your thinking, the way that you process information is completely and totally dependent on your emotional state. And when you start to see that, you start to understand that this is not what I am. This pendulum swing of getting upset and then everything's fine. I'm a layer deeper than that. And I'm starting to remember. I start to be witness consciousness. And I see these things happening and I choose not to engage when they're really good or when they're really bad. We feel it, of course, we feel it, but we remember what we really are. That is the first trial. Then we come to the second trial, which is the 56th gene key, which I actually have in my profile 2 different times. So I am intimately familiar with it. I've studied this one quite a bit. It is the shadow of distraction, the gift of enrichment, and the city of intoxication. And it is the second trial that we go to. Distraction. What exactly are we distracting ourselves from? And what exactly is doing the distraction? Or distracting? Well, what we're distracting ourselves from is intoxication, divine intoxication, divine mind, the most incredible feeling that you have ever felt in your entire life. And if you have had a direct experience of God, be it in meditation or a plant medicine experience or chanting or out in nature or wherever it came for you, then you know intoxication. And it is crazy to think that that is what we are distracting ourselves away from. But the reason that we're distracting ourselves away from it is we have forgotten, right? So we pass through this first trial and then it's time to face the second trial. And we are distracting ourselves through the 5 senses. We're distracting ourselves by chasing things in this physical, material world. Because we think that if I get those things, that it's going to make me feel better. So in reality, I'm distracting myself away at the shadow frequency from deep suffering. We think if only we don't turn towards it and look towards it, then I won't have to feel it. But in reality, it's that not turning towards it that ensures that it stays with you for the rest of your life. Or you can stop distracting yourself away and you can turn towards the suffering. Every single human has it. It is a part of the human condition and it comes from being born into separateness. It is a divine wound. It has nothing to do with trauma that you have taken on in your life. So you can let go of that. And that's not to negate or diminish anything that you have gone through. I know how hard it can be. If you've been around this channel for a little bit, you know about my life. It's not been a walk in the park. And I'm not willing to be defined by that. Instead, what I'm going to do is figure out what I need to do in order to enrich my soul and move closer to unity with the divine. And that's what enrichment is. It's when we finally stop thinking that we're going to be able to solve our suffering in the outer world and instead turn into our heart and begin to do the real work of softening the walls that we have built in defense of our ego. That is what we need to stop distracting ourselves away from. We've got to be willing to face it. And when we are, everything in our life becomes enriching. Enrichment is simply knowing when something that you engage in is going to feed your soul? When are you going to feel a sense of ease, a sense of peace, a sense of joy? And it doesn't have to do with a specific activity. I think it's really important that you understand that. So one day, if I have a beautiful big chocolate cake and I go and eat that piece of chocolate cake, it might be exactly the thing that I need because I'm in celebration with other people or something happened and I feel great and I'm using that chocolate cake to further celebrate and to taste the divine essence that is chocolate. Or I could have an absolute shit day and be very sad and come home and need to distract myself away from that feeling, and I could eat the cake. So it's not the cake, it's the energy, it's the awareness that is brought to it. And enrichment is simply knowing how to engage with the world, even the shadow, in minute doses, so that you move closer to God. So an example of this, I was smoking cigarettes, and still do occasionally, because something in my body told me that I needed tobacco in order to shift and move some of the patterns that I am still holding in my body. Well, they're gone, essentially, at this point. And I think it was because I was willing to honor that. So of course, smoking is not a healthy habit. And it's not something that I will do for the rest of my life. However, in this moment, it is something that was enriching to my soul and a necessary step. So we gotta let morality go here and just be willing to do what you know is right for you. And gradually, what starts to happen is the five senses begin to lose their grasp on us. We stop living through the five senses because we know that they are just us either running away from pain or running towards pleasure. And that's not what we are. We're a layer deeper than that. Our true self isn't affected by that duality. Our true self knows only love. And that is what we're distracting ourselves away from. That's the divine intoxication. So the trial here is to stop distracting ourselves and instead do what is true for your soul, for your causal body, for the light that is dying to burst forth outside of you. And then finally we get to our last gene key, which is the 12th gene key of this ring of trials, or aka the stop codons. And before I do that, let me just say what the stop codons represent. So we said that the gene keys overlay over the genetic code. And I said that each of the codon rings represents a different amino acid. And I didn't exactly tell you the whole truth. Sorry for that. The reason is that there are what are called start codon, which is the 41st gene key, formerly the 35th, but now it's the 41st gene key. And then there are what are called stop codons, and that's what we're talking about today, the stop codons, aka the ring of trials. And they are called the stop codons because when our body is unwinding our DNA, right, which is our code that tells our cells what it needs to do and what needs to be made so that our body can continue to function, the stop codons are like the period at the end of a genetic sentence. So there will be all of this different code, which I'm not going to get too nerdy here, but if you remember like biology class, in your DNA we have the base pairs, A, T, C, G, right? These four nucleotide bases. And those combined in different ways is what gives us the different codons. Anyway, you'll have this little line of A, T, C, G, 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 C, A, all the way down, and then it ends with 3 letters, and that is a stop codon. And that tells the cell, okay, stop transcribing this information, take that chunk of data, go and make that thing that was coded in that chunk of data. So it physically stops a process so that your body can go and do something. And so if we take this back to the law of correspondence, these archetypes show up in the outer world as things that stop you, as things that give you a moment to pause and decide, is this the path or is it not? What do I need to be aware of in this moment? These stop codons can often feel like the world falling apart in your life, and it's because it's a trial. You're being asked to face the dragon. So, 12th gene key is the last. The shadow here is vanity. The gift is discrimination, and the city, sorry, I just kicked the camera. I hope I didn't mess things up, is purity. Okay, shadow, vanity. What this gene key ultimately is talking about is the vanity isn't like your beauty, it's your ego. It's identifying with something that is not real. It's needing to be recognized. And what the gene keys teach us is that when we get to the end, right, when we work our way all the way around, there is no more I. There is no more personality. We realize that the thing that we have been trying to protect is not the real thing. And what is pure, right, the city purity, is actually the indwelling consciousness. It's the part of me that is also in you. And all of us are going through this evolutionary journey to come back into that purity. And this is the final test, because all of the things that you have learned, that you have taken in, that are important to you, you must let go of in order to come into union with God. Heaven has a narrow gate, a camel through the eye of a needle, right? All this language that Christ used is because we've got to let go of even the cities. So the word city is a Sanskrit word, which, well, if you're watching this, you know what city is, I'm going to assume. That word in the East actually oftentimes has a negative connotation because the cities are like superpowers. So like the 35th city is boundlessness. Boundlessness, meaning we are not bound by space or time. If we're not bound by space, that means we're not bound by gravity. That means we can fly. If we're not bound by time, that means I can time travel. Right? Real deal superpowers. If you've seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and the people flying across the rooftops, this is the type of thing that I'm talking about. This is real. And that's what you have to let go of in order to go through this final evolution, this final reunion. Right? Think about the power that Christ had, and he chose to hang on a cross. That's purity. I don't think I have to say anything more there. So this is the ring of trials, the 33rd, the 56th, the 12th. They are going to manifest in your outer life as difficult situations that you are going to have to choose differently so that you can grow and evolve. If you want to serve people, you know, if you have a desire to use the wisdom that this book represents, that this system represents, because Richard didn't come up with these energies. He codified them. He very poetically and beautifully put them in a system that grabs our attention. But these are energies that have been around forever. And so if you want to grow and evolve, you've got to learn to walk through these trials. And you've got to learn to choose differently. So I encourage you to do that. If you want help, I've got a group. It's called the Synarchy. We talk every week about spirituality, about the gene keys, about business, because I'm interested not only in helping you spiritually, but I'm interested in helping you embody these beliefs and actually shift your life and the collective. That's what I'm after here. There comes a point in the journey where our healing reaches a culmination and we must step out in service. And that is what I'm trying to help people to do. I'll also put a link to book a call, one-to-one call with yours truly. If you are at a place where you're ready to take this leap and maybe you want someone to walk the journey with you, I can help you know, the main way that I help is on the business side of things right this moment. And I can absolutely help understand your gene keys, the Pearl sequence, and how that fits into kind of moving and shifting your life. Yeah, so I'll shut my mouth. That's enough for now. Go check out that other channel. Thanks for being here. Until next time.